Hello everybody, Steve here, coming to you with another video from Common Sense Christianity. And today is the day after Election Day. I think it's November 4th. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like I needed to record this video for a lot of reasons. But I really want to verbally document what I think is something that, not only what I think, but something that I'm pretty sure of in terms of what's going to happen to our country, because in many cases of our own short-sightedness is one thing, and the other thing I think is the fact that we have totally thrown away biblical principles, and we are basically thinking within our own selves that we are the masters of our own destiny and that we don't need anyone to tell us anything, even God. We don't need to adhere to biblical principles of law and order. We don't need to adhere to the kind of justice that God demands, not only of his people, but also of the world in general, to ensure as smooth as possible that things will run. Now, throughout the course of history, of course, is man's attempt to not only govern himself or themselves, but to do things apart from God. And I don't care what the civilization is, whether it's Mesopotamia, Babylon, Rome, Greece, even in modern times, some of the other great powers that have existed, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they did not last and that they fell. Why? Because all of these nations veered off. All of them, some didn't even know God, if you look at the ancient ones, but some of the modern powers that we see, those are in Europe and Russia, and some of the other regimes that have fallen, have departed from all sense of Christianity, all sense of I'll say Judeo-Christian principles. They have left them, and what inevitably happens is that they fall. However, not only do they fall, they invariably cause the suffering and death of millions and millions of people. And I won't go into the numbers in this video, but even if you look at the communist revolutions in Russia and China, upwards of 120 million people died because of this false ideology. So fast forward to today, and I see the same things happening to our country. And I to tell you the truth, I used to think that, and it's not unfounded, because the scripture says that it is God that places leaders in position, and he does. I think he does that. But what just came to me recently was the fact that God will sometimes place people in positions of power for our judgment. It might not always be because that person is good or righteous or is putting the country in the right direction. It could be because God has gotten tired with the pull of a nation towards evil. And my proof in that, if you read in the book of 1 Samuel, you'll see that in the beginning, I think it's in the 8th chapter, don't quote me on that, but if you look at biblical history, Israel, who was God's chosen people, up until that time, they had no king. They had what was called judges, and these judges administered judgment because they heard from God, and that's how the system worked. However, it came a time, like I said, if you read in 1 Samuel 8 chapter, I think, that the people were envious of the nations around them, and they wanted a king. And God allowed that to happen. But he told Samuel, who was the prophet at that time, who was a judge, he told him that, okay, I'll give them what they want, but there's going to be some consequences to that. You know, the king is going to eventually tax your children and work your children, and you're going to have armies, and it's going to be all these negative things that happen because you had a king and because you didn't believe in the kingship of God the Father. You didn't need a king, but because you want to be like the nations around you. So all of these things are going to beset you. And if you look at the history of Israel, you know, a couple of hundred years later, they were decimated. The kingdom was divided. They fell into sin as being influenced by the other nations around them because they were envious. And basically they became a people with no home and a people with no purpose. And so fast forward to today, you know, we see the same thing happening to our country. We were at one time not perfect, but at one time I really thought that we had gotten past the racism thing. I really thought that we were coming together as a nation, but in the last 10, 15 years, this thing has reared its ugly head again. And now we're at each other's throats at a level that has not been seen. Also, and this is a big thing for me because I saw a clip or quote from a famous biblical teacher who passed away some years back. His name was R.C. Sproul. I'm sure many of you know of him if you are Christians and so inclined to study some good teachers. You know, in the last half century, R.C. Sproul is at the top of those biblical scholars, teachers, pastor. And one of the things that he mentioned was that, and I'm not quoting verbatim, I'm just paraphrasing. He said he doesn't understand how Christians can vote for someone, a party, or a group that supports abortion. And I had to think about that. And, you know, it's right, because no matter how you dress it up, no matter how you make it sound nice with euphemisms and different words, abortion is the killing of a baby. And let's go back to the Bible. Let's go back to the Bible. Yes, abortion, I think, is one of the most heinous and deadly sins that we are committing as a nation. And it's nothing more to me than child sacrifice. Now, in the Bible, God spoke very severely and harshly about this, saying that he would judge any people who did such a thing. And those countries where it was practiced, just like I said in the beginning, they came to naught. They were judged by God. And because the children of Israel also did this, they were judged. So let me read this to you, just so you'll get a understanding of how God felt about it. And there's many more scriptures in this. I would suggest you look them up. And this is in Jeremiah 32 and 35. And it says, "And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the sons of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Moloch, which I commanded them not, neither came into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. So this is what I was saying, that the people of Israel, God's chosen people, also participated in this child sacrifice, and they were judged for it. So we're doing the same sacrifice, only we're not sacrificing to any false god like Molech. We're sacrificing our children to ourselves. We become our own gods. So it's not a false god, false deity that we are sacrificing these children to. You know, actually, you know, it's the same thing. Inevitably, it's the same thing. You know, we create a god. In this case, it was Moloch. And then we sacrifice children to him. We just replace Molech with ourselves. Okay, I want you to listen to these statistics. Since 1973, and that is the start of Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court decision, 60 million, almost 60 million babies have been aborted. 60 million. Every year, there's about 1 million abortions per year, plus or minus. The numbers, everybody, are just, they're just staggering. Even in, let me give you this statistic, and then I'll be almost finished. In New York City, which has a 72% single parent household, meaning that 72% of the population of black women are having babies out of wedlock. You know, I'm not necessarily blaming them, but I'm just giving you the statistic. But the hard part to comprehend is that there were more abortions in the black community than there were live births. So you do the math and tell me whether or not this is a great evil that is not only affecting our community, but it's affecting the whole country. And yet we say that it is a woman's choice and it's a woman's health situation, which is not really the case. Boiled down to the least common denominator, it is killing. It is taking a human life. And Jesus even said many times, suffer the little children. Do not prevent the children to come to me. And what is abortion? Abortion is the best way to prevent a child to come to Jesus if he hasn't even been born yet. Oh God, may God help us with this. So to bring it all down to a close, I think I said earlier that I can in no way support any politician, any political party that supports abortion, because it's murder. It has nothing to do with choice. It has nothing to do with a woman's health per se. Yes, and I know there are circumstances or situations where the baby is stillborn, or to continue the pregnancy will put the woman in danger. But I would say that that is a very, very small percentage. Most abortions happen because the baby is seen as an inconvenience in terms of what the family or the couple or the woman want to do with their lives, which means that the person is putting themselves up as God and not thinking about the life of that little baby. So in closing, I just want to reiterate that we have become a very short-sighted people, and that we have forgotten God. And because we are forgetting God, because we are going our own way, so to speak, then God is going to eventually judge us. And I don't know if the judgment has anything to do with how the election is going to go, because let me not mince words here since I'm almost finished. The Democrats support abortion, and many Democrats say that the parents should have the power to make the decision even after the baby has come out of the womb. And maybe many of you haven't heard that, but I would admonish you to look that up and see how far that we have gone in our society, where this is even something that is going on in the heads of the minds of these people who are running things, or those that support it. So I am just worried about our country and about our ability to think with common sense and to think with any kind of rationality or forethought about where our country is going. And there are many other things, but I'll save them for another video. But I just had to share this because after looking at the happenings of the election, and there's no decision yet, and it's like people are so blinded to the realities of what's really going on because they are so infatuated with their own need and wish for power that we can't even see what's going on behind the scenes. We can't even make common sense judgments about what is going on in our culture. You know, we see something, we want it, even if it's not good for us. And why is that? Because there's no filter there. There is nothing to control our evil desires. And we've basically relegated God to some kind of ancient religious system that we have no more need of. But it's going to be to our own detriment. And unless God finds a way to revive our hearts, change our hearts, bring us back, then there's nothing going to be in our future except doom and gloom. And I'm sorry to be a bearer of bad news and to sound so pessimistic about the future, but I know it. I see it, and you can see it too if you look at history, just like I said in the beginning. So, do with this message as you will. I just wanted you to be aware of what's going on, what I see going on. And maybe you don't agree, that's fine. Maybe you think that we're okay, even though we're not. And I'll share with you some other things in another video, but I had to get that off my chest. I had to share that with you. So please do, those of you that are subscribed to the group, and I hope you do subscribe. If you want to hear more, please leave a comment. I like to interact. I like to debate. I like to mull over the issues with somebody, of course, in a respectful manner. So please do leave your comments in the comments field. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you like the content. Even if you don't like it, at least respond in the spirit in which it was intended, to just get you to see things that you might not have even thought about before. So God bless you. I'll see you next time.